All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And of course, as always, I am joined by
Jerome Bourgeois, co-founder, Movers Shakers Unlimited. How's it going, Brandon? What's up?
It's going good. It's going good, man. How you doing? Happy Saturday. For those of you out there, thanks again, as I said, so much for joining us from wherever you're watching from. As you will know, every Saturday we try to get into a couple of the news bits that make the rounds in the industry. We have the show known as This Week in Review. We do have a couple of stories that we want to be able to hop into. But before we do that, of course, as always, want to hop into some minutes, just a couple of reminders. If you want to be able to follow, some of the cool things that are happening that we are, getting into in terms of, cons, expos, exclusives, so exclusive chats with guests that, come by the show. Make sure that you follow us on Instagram at Movers Shakers Unlimited. You can also find us on Twitter at Move and Shake UNLTD. And whenever you're, watching this episode, of course, you can chat us directly as the show is going, as you know, since it is going on live. However, if we had a discussion and perhaps you're just now catching up to this conversation after it is aired, you can always follow along in that conversation. TWNRMNSU. So that's This Week in Review, Movers and Shakers Unlimited. So whether it's happening right now currently, or even, as I said, if you're watching it later down the line as a archive video from our content. Now, with that being said, I wanted to be able to hop into the first story that we have today, and that basically deals with, I guess we can say, a film that will be in the DCEU. However, it's the project known as Batgirl. So in a story, let me put it up here. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So yes, in a story that we had from Deadline, it has been brought to our attention that the two Helmers from the recent installment of Bad Boys, and they are two directors. Let me bring them up here. So, and I apologize if I'm butchering your name, but I will do my best.
You want me to say
Dil El Arbi and Bilal Falal.
Hey, that's fine.
Will both be acting as the Helmers for the new Batgirl film. Now, for many of you probably recall that this project has been in development hell for quite a while. Last I remember, it was attached to Joss Whedon, and I mean, I'm not going to go into details about that. We know what has happened there. In the recently, with everything that has happened, and him no longer being attached, or say, well,
We
just say
exited
no
in
longer being
2018.
attached to a lot of projects these days. So with that being said, Jerome, now that we're starting to get more content with a lot of films that perhaps were completed as of last year, whether they are the theatrical cut, the director's cut, if you will, in some cases. What are your thoughts on this project moving forward? Finally,
Yeah, because no, yeah, just to speak on what you were just saying, I know Joss Whedon, he exited in like 2018, so it's been, I mean, 3
yeah, it's
years
been a
later.
while. As I said, it's been in development for
Yeah.
quite a while. I do remember, but
No,
go
no, but
ahead.
I'm just saying, like, that was the most recent. I remember that was the most recent news before I heard this news. So, but what's hilarious, if you really think you want to go back, I mean, like, what, Batman and Robin came out in like 1997, I think it was. So
Yeah,
there hasn't been anything like really Batgirl related. Okay, there is Batwoman on the CW, and that's different. But this is interesting how this is finally coming into fruition. So, no, I'm kind of excited because I mean, I always like the DC. I like seeing how the DC EU or just DC in general trying to expand their film slate and the different characters in their on in their roster, actually having solo feature films. Because I mean, like I said, they've done a pretty good job on the TV side, and obviously there's going to be more TV series coming out, with like Green Lantern and Gotham and was it Gotham PD? I think that's what it is with
Yeah,
Gordon.
yeah.
So I'm sure this is I would think this might be connected somehow. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know that the Gotham series is kind of like the Gotham PD series is more connected to the Batman, with so have Jeffrey Wright. But yeah, I would think that they would somehow want to try and connect it because I mean she's integral to that to Commissioner Gordon story. But yeah, it's just cool that they're doing that, and also I feel like it's also like you're getting more of a rival now of female characters starting to come out more between both studios. Because I mean, obviously DC really laid, they kind of started this with like Wonder Woman being such a big hit, and then you see obviously you had Marvel coming out with Captain Marvel, and then now Marvel is finally Black Widow is going to be coming out this year. And then you have the Marvels coming out later, so like you're kind of seeing back and forth because then obviously on DC you have Birds of Prey, and you know, so it's interesting to see that it's like they're trying to really compete. But yeah, I think it could be good because just adding another female character and a different character to the film universe. So and these guys are
I was gonna
and these guys are good directors. I like Bad Boys for Life. I thought that was a good and installment to that franchise. So I think they could do a good job. At least
And I will say this, like when in going into the most recent Bad Boys film, I'll admit I had pretty low expectations. Like like look,
Yeah.
let's it was for a couple of reasons. One, I like and a lot of people, are back and forth about this. I like the first Bad Boys over the second Bad Boys. I don't dislike the second Bad Boys
I like the
film.
second one the better one.
I don't dislike the second Bad Boys film.
I'm gonna have to
I
disagree,
have a lot
brother.
of fun with it, but I'm just saying have a lot of fun with it, but I still like the first one better. And then on top of that too, when it comes to the third one, I guess because of I get a little I get a little nervous with sequels. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there are rare occasions where this is not true. But when there's so much time,
Yeah.
when there's that much time between installments and so much time has passed, and will it still have the same the same energy that it had before? Because you and I can disagree or agree on this, but like when it comes to sequels, I feel that a lot of times it provides like a capsule of a specific point of time, and is in the case of certain properties, like they work very much so because they are happening during a certain time. Like the everything you just have the zeitgeist of all of these elements that come into play where it just hits at the right time where people's consciousness and how they feel about certain things, it may speak to them, or people are able to relate to things on a certain level because of when a film came out. And I mean, don't get me wrong, we have cases where
So about the Fast and Furious
films
franchise.
well, I'm just saying we have cases
That's been
with films
going
where
20 years strong. No.
well, I'm saying we also have films where they may work because people want to get that nostalgic feel of that time. But I mean, we've seen cases where certain things have to be tweaked. Even if a franchise has been around for a long time, they have to evolve in some type of way to be able to fit into the new era that they are now finding themselves in, or else it just doesn't work. If we were doing if Fast and Furious, to your point, if Fast and Furious decided to stick to I guess what is it, the I'm brain farting on the Keanu Reeves film, but it's sticking to like that Point Break, premise again and again and again, because they kind of just had that same premise in the first two films. If we
well, really, honest. just the first one, but yeah, sort of. But
kind of in the second film too.
The first one was
so
a straight up rip off. I don't know about the second one being like, but yeah, I see
well,
what you're talking
no,
about.
because they still had that undercover aspect, and they didn't really get into like the heist and the kind of the spy and the espionage aspect until what
the fifth
4
one.
or 5? Yeah,
really,
5.
The fifth one.
5, yeah.
When they started,
so Fast 5. So the fact that they were able to make that that heel change and make that pivot, allowed it to get a new breath of air as a franchise. But I mean, if they just try to, remain tried and true to the original idea that they went with, which, as I said, I love the franchise. I enjoy
That's why the first one
the
is the
first
best one,
film.
in
Yeah,
my
like
opinion. I
I
think it's
give
one
the
of the
first
worst
one,
ones.
but again, like a franchise, if it is to survive, has to evolve, and a lot of times those installments act as a capsule for that time and era. Because I can think of a lot of action 80 films where like I love those films like Commando or a lot of those films that that we got in the 80s. And if we were to place it in this day and time, like some of those jokes wouldn't fly, like different aspects of it just
That's true.
wouldn't fly. So
That's true.
yeah,
That's true.
yeah. But still, with that being said, like I said, because I was going off on tangent, I apologize, guys. But you see, I'm really passionate about my sequels. But anyway,
Me
with
too.
Bad Boys, like as I said, I came in with like low expectations, and to my surprise, when I got out of the theater, I had a great time. Because I was also a little iffy on it because if I recall correctly, and you guys can correct me out there if I'm wrong, I believe it came out in January. And so
It did.
whenever
Yeah.
you have a film that comes out in January,
Yeah.
like
Usually,
I'm a little nervous because like typically for those of you that are not aware
it's like
out there, that's
leftover.
like it's like a dumpster
Leftover.
month for Hollywood. So like the fact that a movie comes out in that month or is being released in that month is like not a great sign of what
It's like
studio
January and
feels
September.
about a film. And don't get me wrong, there's some franchises that I love where they have historically come out in January. Like case in point, Underworld. Like I like the Underworld franchise.
Yeah.
It kind of I feel like it 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 was stronger towards the beginning. Like, don't get me wrong, I like it as a overall franchise, but I do prefer like the earlier installments. But like when it started, like it came out those first two installments came out in January. For those of you who want to, if I remember correctly, that you did have some
Low
entry. There was an entry
expectations
that
in that
came in.
month. There's low
So,
expectations in that month. That's all.
but with that said, if they were able to bring that new life or do what they did with the last Bad Boys film, then you know, uh, sky's the limit with Batgirl. So definitely interested to see what they do. Now, with that being said, and now I'll punt it over to you, Jerome. And I felt this would be a good segue into the story that we're talking about, a DCEU film, because we didn't even get into this. This film actually will be releasing on HBO Max, if I understand correctly, for this title, based on what they were saying about Batgirl. So I wanted to be able to hop into what they're talking about with the acquisition, major acquisition that hit the rounds this week. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just, I would just say it's like, well, it's just a bunch of two major shakeups happening in the industry, which will definitely upped the ante when it comes to these streaming wars and the powers that be. It's basically Warner Media is in talks. Well, with they're pretty much merging with Discovery, so it's not even really an acquisition. It's more like a merger. It's like Warner. It's AT&T is pretty much kind of like separating that entity is being separated, and it's going to be merging with Discovery. And you have the head of Discovery who's going to be running, who's going to be in charge, and he's getting like I think it's like 190 million stock options. So that they're putting trust in that guy, but that's really making Warner Media an even more powerful, conglomerate. And so you're gonna have anything Warner Brothers related, HBO Max, and then now anything on the Discovery platform. So they're getting a lot of that, the reality, documentary series stuff. I mean, that's Discovery Channel, TLC, a bunch of I think OWN, Oprah Winfrey's network. Um, I think that parts of that are in there too. But yeah, it's just really interesting because it's like everybody is trying to like keep up with with what Netflix is doing and Disney and um, and then which brings us to the other part of the story, which is Amazon is in talks to acquire MGM, and that's for about 9 billion. I mean, it's going to be in that range. Well, I mean, this is still not. completely confirmed, but they have this is definitely it's in the trades and everything. So but yeah, that's going to definitely have a big impact too, because now Amazon will be a big player too if that deal closes, and then it's really showing that the major companies left that are going to duke it out, and we'll see who which ones really survive this, to try to be the main competitor with Netflix, which a lot of them are ramping up to be. Is like I said, you got Netflix, you've got Amazon now. They're going to be even more of a power player because Amazon they kind of weren't doing as well with their film side, and they had TV shows and stuff, but they didn't really have a lot of those legacy titles. Like with the MGM deal, they'll get the Rocky franchise. They would get like what is it, RoboCop, like a lot of those old classic, the Bond films. There's a lot of classic titles there that they don't have already, so they'll have that film library. Um, and then, like I said, you have Apple. They're ramping up and really getting in that space and being a competitor. And what else? Then lastly is, like I said, is you have Warner Media. Now they're making with their merger with Discovery, and then you have Paramount Plus. It really pretty much you leave Paramount Plus as like the last one who's like not at that level, because they have Viacom, CBS, and Paramount Plus, but their library isn't as vast, and they're spending a lot of money. And then the other companies that really haven't gotten there yet, or not even really trying that hard, are was it Sony? They don't even have a streamer, and then you have like Lionsgate. So it's like these are all the companies now that are ramping up, that are really competing, and it's this could really have an impact on where filmmakers go to submit their films, or the types of deals that they would make with these different companies, and how they're going to get released, and also I know there was some. If you read the article, there was some issues with like how AT&T and Warner Media, like
And I'll pull
uh,
up the article, by
they
the way.
weren't
So go
really
ahead.
they weren't really like the synergy wasn't there completely. I guess with management, or how everything operations were being run, because obviously it becomes a more corporate environment. Well, I mean, it's already corporate, but like you have a telecom business, um, running a huge Hollywood studio and premium you know TV streaming company. Um, so that might impact some of the deals, though, that where filmmakers might want to go now, because they're going to see who's running this new merger and this new entity. So that's
Well,
going to
to your
be, yeah, interesting. So yeah,
I was gonna
go
say,
ahead.
to your point, it'll be interesting. At least the portions of this that I find interesting, whenever we have any type of situation like this, where we're having the combining of two companies. I'm thinking, or say two entities like that. I should say, better term, is just more specifically to what you were saying about what will be the casualties of that, because I mean, what when we have situations of that, we have, just as it states in this article, you have layoffs because maybe certain roles are combined, maybe certain roles are no longer needed. So, again, you have situation of layoffs. Sometimes projects, become casualties. So, case in point to the project we were just talking about, as I said, Batgirl, according to the article there from Deadline, is being planned as a movie for HBO Max. So, with that being said, even though we're receiving this information now, is there any guarantee that project will survive? From what will happen there. Now, if I recall correctly from that story, it talked about the official change not happening until 2022, if I recall. So there is some time
Yeah.
before it becomes official, but still, it puts, unless this film can get up and running relatively quickly, just as an example, because I'm sure there are other projects that will have that same issue as well. Unless this project can get up and running, quickly, it may fall to the wayside because of what's happening here. But what are your thoughts on that? Of not only roles becoming that people have as their jobs becoming casualties, but even projects sometimes becoming casualties because of what, maybe is not considered in line with, what their mission is going forward with their content.
I mean, that's possible. And I'm curious to see about this article. I mean, I know it's interesting about the whole Batgirl situation, how they're saying it's for HBO Max, but you got to remember, what is HBO Max doing now? They're releasing all their movies in the theater and on HBO Max. So I'm wondering if that's going to be a theatrical release. And, who knows? Because, like I said, I don't know if they're going to go back from this new model that they have. But yeah, of course, anytime there's like a merger or like an acquisition, there's usually layoffs, and there's they try to get rid of redundancies or whatever, and then usually have new jobs that get formed. So that always sucks. And I have a lot of friends, obviously, and we have a lot of friends in the entertainment industry. So you know, it- I mean, it could impact some of my friends. Who knows? But I would really, I mean, I really think that I really highly doubt that project would probably get compromised, because that's like such a big, the whole DC universe, DC properties are such big, high value, uh, intellectual property that they own, that I would think that would be more of a priority. But you never know, because um, when you have new management. I just think what's going to happen is, I want to know how they're going to try and integrate these. Maybe they might integrate more, the reality show and documentary stuff. Like, how are they gonna make one app then, where it's like, forget, it'll be HBO Max and Discovery? I mean, why would I want to spend money on that Discovery Plus when I have HBO Max? So I feel like there's going to be more something that, to me, that's
Discover
kind of a weird.
Max.
That's going to be a weird. To me, that's kind of a weird branding of that. I mean, it is true. It's like when you go on the Disney Channel, the Disney Plus, you have, obviously, like, they show you. It's like, you can go to Marvel, you can pick Marvel, you can pick Star Wars, you can pick
Yeah, any of the
National
IPs.
Geographic.
Yeah,
But
sure.
it's interesting though, because, like, does National Geographic really fit with Disney Plus? But no, they just you could go there if you want, but it's under the same company. I mean, so I kind of feel like it's gonna be weird how they do that, if they do it that way. I would think they would. Um, but another thing I wanted to say though is, it's just funny, because it's taking these, as opposed to like with the Amazon deal, where like these really big tech companies that got so much money, um, are now this is the time where they're really dwarfing the usual bigger the previous big players. Because we forgot to mention NBC Universal. Like, I mean, they're a big player, but now
Yeah,
the
they're now
question is
being dwarfed. Yeah.
the question is NBC Universal and, like I said, and Paramount Plus, Viacom, CBS. What's gonna happen next? Like, is Apple gonna come in and swoop in one of the, acquire one of those companies to try and compete? I mean, or maybe they might. I mean, who knows? Uh, but I will tell you, it is kind of funny. Well, not well. It's kind of interesting to see the valuations of some of these studios too, because, I mean, of course, MGM has a big film library, but I guess on the TV side they didn't really have much. But that's looking at 9 billion. But then you look at, like, remember when Disney acquired Fox? I mean, it wasn't just 20th Century Fox though. That was like 80 something billion. So it just shows, like, you know, if you have a vast library of content, on the film side, TV side, like, how valuable that could be, especially if these legacy titles, these classic films and franchises. Um, and
But I was
then,
gonna say,
you know,
to your point real quick, is in addition to what we were saying about, potentially things falling to the wayside, another concern that I have is, as things like this happen, I always think about instances where we might have I enjoy the fact that, you have all this competition, because, when you have that competition
yep,
in business, it's going to breed the best out of all the companies involved, because they're each trying very hard to be able to reach the audience. But when you have fewer and fewer competitors out there, things are going to start being the same, because a lot of organizations and a lot of entities are not going to want to take as many risks, because they don't have a need to take as many risks, because, like, they have a hold over, many different umbrellas. So, is that going to be another thing that we may come across, where a lot of the content, that we enjoy, and when a lot of, artists are provided the opportunity to take chances with a lot of projects, or entities, or when they're given their resources, to showrunners, producers, writers, directors, for a lot of these projects, will some of them not get made because, they don't feel a need or an incentive to really take any chances if they kind of have a hold over over an entire market. So that's something that concerns me as well.
Yeah, no, I just to piggyback on that. Yeah, I think that could be a possible. Well, this is the thing. I think that was what was happening already. See, I think that's what has been happening for a while in Hollywood. And then until these big tech companies that weren't in that game, in the Hollywood game, they came in, and then they had to. What they were doing is they had to create content because they didn't really have much. But then now some of them are acquiring. Um, you still have that more on the tech side, like I said, like Apple, like unless Apple's going to swoop in and acquire someone else, maybe. But like Netflix is all about creating their own content because they kept licensing stuff. They had nothing, they had stuff temporarily, and then they didn't want to be stuck in that situation where they're just uh you know selling these licenses, paying for that content. But what's funny though is I was reading how, like, Viacom CBS, with Paramount Plus, like they've allocated a certain like it seems like a higher budget. I don't know if it seems like it's a significant budget just for new content now, for new stuff. So I feel like NBC Universal, that maybe Paramount Plus, like those two entities, they're probably going to be spending more to get more content now, or different content, unless to the point where maybe there might be more opportunities there, unless another big company maybe buys them up, and then it might change. But I still think with like Netflix and like um, and like Amazon, and Netflix and like these tech companies like Apple, I think they're still going to be, looking for opportunities too, because it's all about subscribers. They want people to come back. The game's changed so much now. It's like everyone's trying to find a way to increase their subscriber base, and it's like they're going overboard because they know they're looking at the long game. They're like, look, even if we spend all this money now, if we can build our subscriber base so much, increase it so much, that's so much revenue that's going to keep going, they're going to get. And I think that was one of the issues with AT&T. Like if you read the article, one of the articles, they're talking about how they knew they came to the conclusion that they were, according to the article, they were in Variety and Deadline, they were coming to the conclusion that Warner Media would have to spend so much more money to compete, to get more content, that if they had to take out debt or whatever, it started affecting their telecom business. So it's like if it's going to affect their main business, they're like, this is not, and they acquired that for a large amount of money. So they got to the point where I think they just probably got to the point where, to the
Bit
point
off
where
a
they're
little
like,
more than they could
spin
chew.
it off. Yeah, they're just like, how's it? He's like, we want this property, but it's, we want this entity, but like it's messing with our main business. Like, nah, you guys can, separate, do your own thing. And this is sad because it's like the second merger they had or acquisition they had that didn't go well, because remember AOL, Time Warner. Well, you had that, and then that got divided up, separated, and then now you have this one. So hey, it's business. But yeah, right now is the time to get out, to try and get your stuff out there, because they're looking for content. So
there you go. Well, with that being said, switching gears a bit, I guess from different movie creating houses. I know we were talking about DCEU, so those DC adaptations initially, and then getting into the information there of that trend that we've been noticing. But hopping over to the MCU. In the House of Mouse, there has been a story surrounding the third Ant-Man film. So let me pull it up here. It was via a post from the director. Let me pull it up now. There we go. All right. So, yes, via a post from the film's director, Peyton Reed, it was revealed that they're going to be utilizing the volume in a prep photo that Peyton Reed had for Ant-Man 3, or I should say, better known as Ant-Man and the Wasp: QUANTUMANIA. See if we can get a better picture here. There we go. Apparently, as I said, they're going to be utilizing this technology known as the volume. For those of you that are not familiar out there, is basically the technology that was utilized for the Mandalorian, which is quite fascinating in terms of how they utilize technology to provide environments for the actors and make it more seamless, not just for the viewer, but also for the actor that is acting in that space. So Jerome. Well, before I get into that, Jerome. For those of you that are not aware, I don't believe they've given us really too much information surrounding the plot necessarily for Ant-Man and 3 in that having like official synopsis, but there are some interesting aspects of it which are quite intriguing. I mean, we have King the Conqueror, who will be played by Jonathan Majors, who many of you may know as the lead from Lovecraft Country. We do have the addition of a stature. So Casey Lang, not played by the same actress. This is going to be played by a different actress, Catherine Newton. But with that, it provides some interesting elements because up to this point, even in the not just in the MCU thus far, or say in the films thus far, but also in the series, we've been getting the indication that we may very well get the formation of the Young Avengers, since many of them are popping up, of which she is a member. Currently, based on the recent video that we have from Phase 4 that you guys probably saw in a prior video, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania will be releasing on February 17th, 2023. So now, Jerome, thoughts on them utilizing this technology for the film?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it just shows when there's a problem or something is not as easy to do in and I mean in anything, any industry, but specifically filmmaking. And then you have someone like John Favreau who's like, going back to the Jungle Book. Oh no, I think it was even it started with the Jungle Book, but then it was like the Lion King. That's when he started really playing with this technology. Um, it totally changed the game now because if you watch The Mandalorian, I had no idea about this until I was watching all the the behind the scenes documentaries. I was like, wow, this is amazing. They're shooting this with this stagecraft technology, um, and that's the actual immersive experience where basically like the cast and the crew they're watching um, the high end rendering digital background on this huge spherical LED screen, which is called they call it the volume. It's actually made of a lot of smaller LED screens. So basically, the actors can act and have an idea of like the world that they're in, and it's really good for their
Yeah, it's
performance as
really
opposed
cool.
to
I'm gonna leave the link for you guys so that way you can check it out, where it
yeah.
actually goes into
Because the
the
thing, because the thing is,
specific.
I mean, if you know anything about filmmaking, I mean, most people I think by now know about CGI and green screen, chroma key, because the whole idea of chroma key is like that color is either really light green or blue because they have to key it out because most people aren't wearing that color. So, but by doing that, you have to. I mean, the actors really have to be amazing, and you have to look in certain, have a certain, line of sight, and better hope that it matches up with the background. And you do get that, but I know that must be really tough on the actors. I mean, yeah, of course, like you said, they have to use their imagination. But if they can actually see the background, and the world that they're in, and like get an idea, I really think that's going to help the performances and help everybody around to just know more about how it's going to look like. And the fact that obviously this is something that was done in the Mandalorian that's owned by Disney, it makes sense that Marvel would use this technology too. And like, watch, I bet you're gonna see you probably see almost every Marvel movie or every Star Wars movie come, or show that's made from now on is probably gonna utilize the same technology and just keep getting better. But what's funny, it goes back to even was it video game, a virtual reality experience, because that's if you watch the Mandalorian behind the scenes, like John Favreau, he talks about this, and it's like game engine technology or whatever. But basically, it's like they were just experimenting with that, and they were just had the right people that could apply it to this scenario. And I mean, I don't know if you, I mean, I would think that most people who've seen The Mandalorian, like, I mean, it's impressive. Like you watch it, it looks, it's the quality is up there with like the movies or anything else. And I think the main issue that they were looking at, the one of the main challenges was the lighting and the shadows and just making it more realistic. And that's what they pretty much were mastering with that. But I know there's a lot of prep work involved ahead of time, like where the actual, it's like while they're doing pre-production for the show or the film or whatever they're doing, um, the the director and the special effects team, they have to like communicate, all right, this is what we want, and then the visual effects team is creating those backgrounds um, up until they're shooting. So then they have this real time, change in real time change in the actual technology and the visuals that you see in the background, so that everyone can be immersed in the experience. But the thing is also, it's not just screens too. They also use real sets too. So it's kind of like a combination of real sets and using the volume, at least for the Mandalorian. I would think they would do this for for Quantumanium. We'll see, but I think it's amazing. I think this is really going to change the game with CGI driven films. So I can't wait to see how it looks with the Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumanium.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting because if I recall correctly from, and as I said, I shared the video with you guys, is it allows them to do things on the fly. So like, where you have, many folks that are, world builders with, set designers and folks of that nature, being able to, just like you said, for actors and even for filmmakers to be able to immerse those that are working, in that on that project into that world. Um, it's so much different than having to really stretch and use your imagination to picture it being there versus being able to implement that like right there on the spot. So there's definitely something to be said about that, and it'll be it we're I feel like we're definitely seeing kind of like a renaissance in terms of, just as you said, of where we're starting now and what the possibilities could be going forward of what else can be done, of being able to world build in that way. Now, I know before we were talking about a trend with mergers and with acquisitions. Another major one that I wanted to get into today to close us off, and we talk about it so much around here at Movers and Shakers Unlimited, is our cons. So this week, there was information that dropped that Baltimore Comic-Con 2021 is a go. Now, for those of you that are, unfamiliar with Baltimore Comic-Con, it normally, at least recently in the time that I've been going, because I guess I've been going for what I want to say about 4 or 5 years, is it was happening in the winter in October, but this year it actually is going to be happening in September. It will be happening. Pull it up here. It's actually going to be happening on. Oh, actually, hold on. Let me rewind that. I apologize. So it is happening in the winter. Still, as of this year, it's going to be happening October 22nd to the 24th, and seeing that it has provided information of it being a go, with all the other events that will likely follow. We have some other shows that were redirected to the end of this year. So such as C2E2, which normally happens in, I want to say, the springish time, is actually also happening in the winter. It's actually happening in December.
And you're gonna be in
We have
Chicago.
yeah, in
Yeah,
December.
perfect timing for
Whew.
that one.
But yeah,
You have fun.
consider, considering that we have Baltimore Comic Con 2021 happening later this year, and as a matter of fact, we actually have another con happening this this weekend, in fact. But it seems it by the fall/winter that we're seeing more and more cons, from what I have just given this one as an example, are happening, for sure in a lot of capacity. So will this be a taste of our con season returning back to form? Man, I can talk today. Returning back to form. Jerome, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think it's great. I mean, it's a step. I mean, I still wouldn't say everything is gonna be like, even there's though they're saying it's back to form or whatever. Like, I'm sure there's gonna be limitations, because I was just reading about how, like, in California they're finally ramping up to open up in, I think it's in June, and they're the only the limitations I saw, I was reading about. I think there was like, if there's like, people didn't have to wear masks if indoors or outdoors for a certain limit, but I think it was once you hit like 5,000 or something indoors, then they had to start. Well, this is what, like I said, this stuff could be changing at any time, but I was reading that it was that's when people might be required to show their vaccine card, or just prove that they've been vaccinated, or get tested and prove that they've been tested. And then if you're outdoors, I think if it's like 10,000 or something. This was in California, at least. I don't know about the other states, but the same sort of thing. But my thing is like, I feel like even with these cons or whatever, like, that's cool. I mean, hey, I got vaccinated. I just gotta wait a couple more days and I'll be fully vaccinated. But um, what's it called? I mean, I don't. I'll be honest. Like, I don't know how much I'm gonna believe like anybody is just vaccinated, or got tested if they just say so. It's like, I just personally, this is my opinion. I personally think that they should be required to show that they're vaccinated if you're gonna have that many people there, because
Well,
I mean,
I'll say this. I was going to say, I'll say,
sorry.
go
Well,
ahead.
let me finish. Like, the only reason I say
Go
is
ahead.
because I mean, like, look, of course, these vaccines. I'm not like, obviously, full disclaimer. I'm not a doctor, medical professional, but based on what I've read, and since I've gotten the vaccine already, um, I know that. I mean, it's common knowledge. Like the FDA like did an emergency um, authorization of these vaccines, like the Pfizer, Moderna, whatever. They weren't technically FDA approved, so it's like there's always changes going on, and there's probably going to be some booster shots we might have to take too. So the main issue is like, what was going on in India or some of these other countries, where you have a lot of people that were getting, there was the new variants were starting to emerge. And I'm not saying that the vaccines aren't good, can't protect you from some of these variants, but you never know. I mean, there's always going to be new variants, and like, I don't know. I think it's going to be harder to say that everybody is. Yeah, you're going to have more people comfortable going to places with a lot of people. I'm not saying like if you have smaller amounts, like say it's a few hundred or whatever, but once you start hitting the thousands or whatever, same with concerts. And I know that some of these big companies or promoters are starting to schedule concerts too, and shows. I think there's gonna have to be someone enforcing that or something to make it more, appealing, and have people feel more comfortable too. Because I
Well, I was
just
going to
I don't know.
say, with
It's
that
hard to
being
trust
said,
that.
and this is I would say this probably should have prefaced it with this. Um, Based on what they have, and I can read just a portion of what they had in that press release regarding the show returning. They basically said, I'll just read it directly. It says, Baltimore Comic Con has received numerous inquiries from fans, exhibitors, retailers, guests, as to the status of the event. We're happy to announce that we're going to be back in person. We're going to be working with the convention center, as well as following conservative best practices to ensure the safety of all attendees at our event on either side of the table. We encourage, so they place it in there. So I guess it's kind of use your common sense, I suppose, but encourage everyone to follow healthcare recommendations to ensure the safety of everyone, yourself included, and plan for a fun return to Baltimore this fall. They go into more detail about, of course, they go into the logistics about the ticketing, and if you had a ticket for the canceled show of last year, it gets a transfer to this year. But from what I gather from just the reading between the lines of what they're saying there, they're going to be a go. However, they may tweak certain things as they get closer and closer to the event. Again, this is happening in October. We're
May.
still in May.
Huh.
But with it being a couple of months away, I'm sure, as we get closer and closer to the event, as things continue to progress, because, things are always progressing, from month to month to month, that they may very well do that. Who knows? Again, they're going to be basing it on, perhaps they're going to be basing it on the practices that as they stated there, that they're going to be working with the convention center. They're going to be working with the city of Baltimore, in terms of what protocols they have in place in those types of gatherings and what they go with. So I still feel like this is still going to be an ongoing, evolving thing. But the caveat, the glass half full aspect, so to speak, is that it looks like, fingers crossed, that we are getting our con season back, because I missed it so
Well,
much.
well,
Many of
some
you
of
out
them.
there have missed.
Well,
Well, I'm just saying,
I'm not getting San
slowly.
Diego. We're not getting San Diego Comic-Con like how it's supposed to be, but yeah, we'll see what happens in November. But anyway,
Yeah, but I was just saying, at least we can get some momentum, starting in the fall, of getting the con
it's something.
season
Yeah. But New York Comic
revved
Con
and going again. New York Comic Con, so far as I know, is still going to be happening. They I know that they said similar thing. They've gone a similar route as Baltimore, that they said that they will make adjustments accordingly, as they get closer to the show. But so far as I know, it is a go. It is happening. So they
Yeah.
they may very well do the same thing of, they, like you said, require people to bring a card, proving or demonstrating that that they have been vaccinated. Who knows? But as
Or
I
maybe a
said, at
system or
least,
something where they scan.
yeah,
Yeah. So all I'm just saying is like I'm down for whatever. I just feel like it just needs to be implemented or enforced somehow because, it's like if everybody, I just feel like if everyone's trying to like, if you want to get back to normal, you don't have them. If you're not gonna wear a mask, that's my thing. If you're not gonna wear a mask, whatever, like I just can't take your word for it. That's just how I feel. It's like I just feel like some of these states or some of these areas, even with like I said, they're trying to. I mean, basically, even with the CDC, just trying to encourage people to get vaccinated. And I get it. If you see that, hey, you don't have to use your mask, that's fine. But like when you're in one of those conventions, I mean, come on, we've been to we've been to a bunch of I mean, that's why I said that's what I'm saying. Like San Diego Comic Con, that would have been another level. Man, there's so many people there. I'm just curious, and it'd be interesting to see what if they're still going to limit it though. Like how many people are actually going to, or will they say, yep, you can? It's like either they limit it, either they're going to limit how many people could go there, or they're going to just be like, no, you can go, but then they
they
enforce it's
may
like,
do that. Well, I
boom,
know a
you got
lot
to show
of,
the
and
card or
And I
something.
was going to say, going back to New York Comic Con, because they're run by Repop, C2E2, New York Comic Con, all of those shows are run by Repop. So, and then another reason why I have a feeling that that it looks like it's just going to happen, and they'll just make the adjustment, accordingly when it gets time to do the show, is that they've already been sending out, and many of you guys know this, they've been already sending out applications regarding certain aspects of the show, whether it's been, panels, applying as media, things of that nature. And the thing that they are also doing, they're providing people the option. So like, in a case for someone who isn't necessarily sure, now I don't know if this is the case for Baltimore, but at least Repop is doing this, is they're giving people the option to, if the person who's doing a panel themselves don't feel comfortable, or they feel that the guests may be a little iffy on coming to the show for their panel, or to do their panel, I guess, is that they can do it virtually and still submit it into the system, to still be shown as a part of the programming. So you're being provided the option to either physically come to the show, or to do it virtually and have it shown in that capacity. So
Oh yeah, and one thing I'll say, I'm thinking that this is probably going to be the future too, like a mix of virtual and
indeed, yeah.
just in general with everything. It seems like because like the technology has advanced so much within the last year, and
While
it's
you're doing that, I'm
so
gonna try to
normal.
find what I was talking about. But go ahead. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
But anyway, but yeah, I just think I feel like that's going to be more the future regardless. But yeah, that's what I was just, that's what I want to add.
For sure. So let me see if I can find, that specific. Yeah, here we go. So in them in Repop, some providing the information regarding panels. They basically go into, that they want to be, assure you that, repop is the number one priority in the well-being of people, just as, many companies have been saying, of providing that assurance. It says right now, we see a path forward for, safe, amazing events that are going to look a bit different than usual. So that's where we're headed. Keep in mind that we communicate and subject, that we communicate is subject to change as state and local guidelines are adjusted. So similar to what we were talking about before, that they were going to make those adjustments on the state and local level accordingly. I encourage you to stay connected with us, or say we encourage you to stay connected with us via our newsletters, social channels, websites to keep on top of the latest information right up to the shows. And then I wanted to get into that other part of talking about what they were saying physically. So it says in bold because it gives you different options. It says, I'm not interested in attending physically in 2021. Can I present my program virtually? And it says the response, yes. Our goal remains the same, bring together our fan communities to celebrate the best pop culture as to offer. Alongside all of our physical events, we'll be running a virtual event companion through findthemetaverse.com. So whether or not you join us in person, there will still be programming opportunities available. There will also, as it shown there, all our opportunities to check out the content as well. So, or when filling out this information, keep that in mind. So they are giving people that option, whether, like I said, whether it's the moderator themselves or the potential guests that panelist will have on the in the program that they're trying to do. They're trying to be accommodating to that way people may feel. Even if we have folks that have been vaccinated, we have been uh, in our homes for what, a year and a half. So it's going to take a while, for people to feel, comfortable to get back into their normal routine, even if whether they're being safe or not. So yeah, it'll be interesting, just with mini shows and keep it locked, because I'm gonna actually be talking to a couple of folks with some upcoming cons soon, talking about how the atmosphere and how the climate is currently at the show that they're attending, because it's a very interesting thing to be away from something for such a long time, and to kind of just be expected just to have things go back to normal, which we know that doesn't typically happen, especially something that can be as traumatic as that, or as scary as that. So but was there anything you else wanted to add in that regard, Jerome, before we close off?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I will first say, just lastly, I would just say, I just think it's great that it's at least we're getting some. We're getting something. We're getting somewhere. I mean, I just have to wait. I think a couple more. I don't know, a couple more days or so,
Yeah,
and then I'm going to movie theaters again, and I'm going to watch Black Widow and in the Heights. All these, I'll go watch F9. I'm gonna go
F9.
crazy.
Yeah,
I don't care. I'm gonna go crazy, and that's like, man, last movie I saw in the theater. Okay, I did go see Tenet, and I wore my mask and everything. But before that, before everything, I remember the last movie I saw
it's been a minute,
before that
man.
was no, you know what it was? I think it was Bloodshot with Vin Diesel. And I remember
Oh wow, wow.
when I went in the theater, uh there was like nobody there. There was like a few because nobody wanted to go. It was right in that transitional phase where they're like, maybe you should go to theaters. I was like, I'm going. And then I was like, hey, no one's there. So hey. But anyway, just that idea of like, yes, finally some sort of normalcy, just the idea where you don't have to wear your mask not necessarily everywhere, and now we can finally get back to human interaction and hey, maybe start shaking, shaking people's hands, give someone a hug. I don't know, like we missed that, we crave that. It's like, hey, dating, that's another thing. But anyway, this is a good first step, and I'm glad it's starting to ramp up. But I will say, I mean, just to be on the, just me being more conservative in this situation, I really think 2022 is when we'll have any, that's really when we'll start getting real normalcy. I have a good feeling it's going to be around then, around that time. But this is a good start. It's a transition, baby steps, and we'll see how it goes. But also, disclaimer: everyone should always be cautiously optimistic. Anything could happen though, too, because I mean, you never know. We need to get booster shots or whatever. I mean, this is just seems to be, another thing that's part of our lives now. I mean, maybe it's not going to just be go get the flu shot. It's like, oh, go get your new COVID shot. So
Who
no,
knows?
who
Who
knows?
knows for
But
sure.
it's a good start to normalcy. So I'll say that.
Definitely. Well, with that being said, I am your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And once again, I am joined by.
Jerome Bourgeois, co-founder of Movers and Shakers Unlimited, and definitely like, subscribe, follow us. You can see Instagram down below, JW Bourgeois. 21, that's for Twitter, JW Bourgeois for Instagram, Movers Shakers Unlimited on Instagram, Move and Shake UNLTD on Facebook. And yeah, just like, subscribe, check us out. And, Brandon, if you want to say anything else,
Yeah, for
you go.
sure. Yeah, so Twitter, as you can see down there, find me at Brandon Choi ENT, on Brandon Choi _ ENT on Instagram. And yeah, just as Jerome was saying, if you enjoy these videos, be sure to like and subscribe. We do have a couple of shows that will be on the way. I might be making an announcement about an upcoming show that we may have coming very soon. That's all I'll say. But we do have a couple of other shows that will be happening. I know I've already announced it, but I'll give you a reminder: is that we will be back with The Expanse. We'll be back with. We're actually going to be doing a show for Star Trek Discovery, so be on the lookout for that on when that will kick into gear once the new season starts. And other than that, now that we, just as I said in the last story, we will be, having some events start to progressively return. We will be having coverage on those as well, whether it's exclusives with some of the guests or maybe some programming from some of those cons and expos. We'll see. But yeah, again, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see you guys soon. Peace.
Peace.